Tonight we have Jackie Glaser joining us. Many of you know Jackie. She really needs no introduction, but she is the director of Olami Student Leadership, as well as the Olami Connect meditation series, as well as like a million other things. And she's also a clinical psychologist, and we're really excited to be having her unique insights into how to maximize our personal and spiritual growth. So thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us.
From the car, straight to you. Okay, so please forgive the car. I never usually do this. I was stuck and I was like, okay, but it's all right. This is life. This is what happens in Jewish living, right? We get stuck wherever we are. We go with the flow. So Chai called me and said, you know, can you do something just to give people sort of strength and, you know, just help them with their growth, whatever it is. So for those of you that have been in my Seriously Sold classes, please forgive me because some of this theme, oops, oh, they see, there we go. That's the signal is on now. I thought I propped it up in a way that was like good. I could talk with my hands. Please forgive me if any of you, I think Julia was in my Seriously Sold class. I'm not sure who else, but maybe you've heard this theme. But if you're in this class again and you hear the same theme, it's because it actually is good for you to hear it again because you're in a different place now and you'll hear it differently. That's my experience of hearing things if I hear them twice. So tonight's topic is how to max out, not freak out. And the reason that it's called that is because often when you're growing in Judaism, as I'm sure many here, if not all of you have experienced, you get to a point where there's part of you that's going, oh my gosh, I love this. This is amazing. I resonate with these ideas. It's so cool. Like, oh yes, yes, yes. I mean, you're hearing wisdom and you're like, yes, I totally get that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, what? I have to do what? Are you joking? I am not doing that. No way, no way. Am I ever doing that? Halacha, no way. That's insane. That's sexist, racist, judgmental, narrow, extreme, like, and you freak out because you hear of something that you don't understand or that you understand, but you're like, absolutely not. Like, but then it's like a conflict internally because there's so much of you that loves Judaism and is resonating with it. And there's another part of you that's like, I could never do that. So because I could never do that, I'm not sure what to do with this whole thing. Is this resonating? Like, I'm not sure how to deal with my inner conflict and my inner tension because there's part of me that loves so much about it. And there's another part of me that's freaking out about a whole lot of other stuff. So this topic tonight is really about how do I approach generally the concept of halakha, especially when I don't know all of it yet and I'm not really on board with all of it necessarily. Like, how do I approach it in general? And how do I approach the fact that, like, I can't take it all on at once, right? I can't take it all. How do I maximize my growth rather than freak out about my growth? So some of that, some principles that I found helpful that I was taught by my rabbis and they were taught by their rabbis and their rabbis, right? As well as things I've learned along the way. So one of the biggest reasons we freak out about halakha, no matter where you're at on the journey, is because unless we truly value the wisdom behind that halakha and we get it, we feel that it's taking away some of our freedom, right? What do you mean? I like my Friday nights. I like going out with my friends. Like, I don't want to do Shabbat and like stop everything that I like for Friday. Like, I'm just using that as an example, right? Obviously, you're in the Shabbos circle. So all of you here value Shabbos to some degree. You're maybe not I'm just using an example that maybe you went through this stage at some point when you heard about Shabbat, right? But, and no matter where you're at in your own journey around Shabbat, there's part of you that really feels this, like, I don't want to lose, like, I'm going to lose my freedom. And essentially that's the feeling, is how do I not lose everything I like and value while I grow in my Judaism? And if we want to look inside anything, if we want to look deeper into the Torah, we always look, can I share screen? Yeah. Oh no. Can I share screen? Can someone make me a co-host? If you make me co-host, I think I can share a screen. I'll just share a source. Because if we look inside the Torah at like the idea of freedom and like where freedom's mentioned, obviously the one of the key, sorry, I'm just trying to do this at the same time. Yeah. One of the key concepts where we experienced freedom was when Jews were freed from Egypt, right? That's the narrative of the story where we were freed from Egypt. However, if we look also in the Mishnah, Perkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, we see here a description about the 10 Commandments and the tablets. So here it says the tablets are God's handiwork, right? And the script that's on the 10 Commandments was God's script. And it says charis. If you look in the Hebrew, you'll see, where is it? Here, charis. Can you see my thing here? Yeah, charis. Don't read it as charis, which means engraved. You'll see God's script charis, which means engraved on the tablets. So the script is engraved into the tablets. Then the Mishnah goes on and says, but don't read it as charos engraved. Instead, read it as chayrus, freedom. For you can have no freer person than one who engages in the study of Torah. So it's so interesting because we know in Torah that when two words are identical and the vowels are changed, they're deeply connected in concept. Yes? You've heard this idea before? When the two words in Hebrew are the same, but there's just the vowels are changed, they're deeply connected. So here it's hinting to this hint that charos and chayrus are deeply connected, engraved in freedom. But you can have no freer person than one who engages in the study of Torah, which is also weird because that's the very thing we said we feel like we're losing when we take on more and more of this like kind of halacha, that everyone's doing all these rules and all these limitations. How do I really feel free? And what on earth is that talking about? So that goes on and says anyone who engages in the study of the Torah becomes elevated, as it is said, from Matana Nachliel to Bamos. We know that these are actually places, but they also are deeper ideas. Matana means, anyone know? Matana in Hebrew, you must know this, some of you.
Gift?
Yes, it means a gift. So at first you heard Torah and you're like, wow, this is amazing. This is like, whoa, this is like free wisdom. This is incredible. It's like a gift. Nachaliel means inheritance. At some point you feel like this is not a gift. This is mine. This is my birthright. Hence the name of the program. This is my inheritance. This is wow. This is mine. And then once you get past that idea and you actually start working within the system of Judaism, you get to Bamos. Bamos literally means spiritual heights. You actually can use Judaism to catapult yourself to your own full potential, right? So it's hinting here on the growth trajectory that Torah takes us on. But the deeper idea is, what on earth is the connection here of charos engraved and chayrus freedom? Is this making sense? I speak very fast. Maybe it's an Australian thing, like we're very far away, so we want to get it all in. I don't know. But essentially, is everyone hearing the question of like, what on earth, how can Torah set me free? And what's the connection between charos and chayrus based on the Mishnah? Yeah. So it turns out from a Jewish perspective that you are never truly free. You're always a slave to something. Yeah. When we were freed, and we go back to the first narrative of freedom, when we were freed from Egypt, I'm going to tie this into our growth in a minute. When we were freed from Egypt, were we freed from Egypt to party as a nation? Yeah, go party. No, we were freed to do what? Ahava and Leo, you feel like you get this?
You follow the Torah to get the Torah eventually.
Right. So we were freed from a lower reality to be in service to a higher reality, to be in service and Eved Hashem, to be in service to God and to the Torah. So we were freed from a lower reality in order to serve a higher reality. And that's really the truth of life, really, for all of us even today, is that we think we're free, but really we're a slave to our desires if we're not serving from a higher place. So what does that mean? It means like if I just want to go out and I need to party, if I just want to have that chocolate cake and I need to have it, and I feel like if you restrict me from eating that chocolate cake, I'm going to feel trapped. I wasn't really free to begin with. I was really just a slave to my desire that told me to have the chocolate cake, right? If I feel compelled to satisfy whatever I feel like I want to do, which is a desire, then I'm not really free. I'm really a slave to that. And we get to choose. The only choice we really get is, what do I want to be in service to? Do I want to be in service to my lower self, or do I want to be in service to my higher self? Is this making sense? Yeah. So we see that across the board. Forget Judaism and religion. If you have a big exam or a big job interview the next day, and all of a sudden your friends are going out and you really want to go out, but you really value the job interview, you're already in a pull, an exchange, right? Part of you really wants to go out. That's the lower self, because it's going to be fun. And part of you, the higher self, wants to go far in life and wants to get that job or pass that exam because you want to make a difference in the world and you want to do something good with your life. So you're in conflict, right? And you choose often to choose the higher path. I'm not going out with my friends. I'm choosing not to go out with my friends because I value the job interview. I value my exam. I choose because I'm valuing. And all the time we're making these sacrifices all the time for what we value. Yes? So it's really, really important to know that this is exactly the same with Judaism. That at any given moment, I'm choosing something for Judaism because I value what it's bringing me. I value being in service to something higher rather than just doing whatever it is I want to do in that moment. If you don't value it, which could be the case, and that's okay. If you don't value it, then learn more about it. Learn more about it because you're not there yet to really grasp that idea, right? So learn the quandary I found myself. I grew up with zero religion background, zero. Jumping around with the kangaroos in Sydney, Australia was fun and safe. Like, that's where I wanted to be. Father was a Holocaust survivor. Let's go far away to a safe little la-la land called Sydney, which really it was. It was beautiful. And I didn't want anything to do with Judaism, right? So So at any given moment, we are choosing what we want to value. Yeah, we want to value. And I remember thinking this at one point in my own journey where I didn't really value whatever modesty or whatever it was. Like I was on the beach, I was a beach baby, and I was on the beach and everything was great and whatever, until I realized I started learning more and more about the concept. And then when I learned more and more concept and really thought about it, I was like, wow, that really does resonate, the concept. I don't want to do it. No way do I want to do it. But I really resonate with the idea of it. And then slowly, I started learning more about it. I went, I'll just change a little, something little, right? I'm just going to, like, you know, maybe I won't wear midriffs, or maybe I won't wear, like, something little as I go along. And then slowly build up my own sensitivity till the point where I chose it. I chose it because I valued it and I'm there, right? And the only commitment a Jew has is to continue growing and continue learning and to take on things in baby steps, right? So at some point when you approach halacha with the idea that I'm never really truly free, it's not really freedom, it's really I'm a slave to my desire, my lower self. Is that who I want to be? No, I want to be someone who lives in my higher self. But I don't really resonate with this thing, so I need to learn more about it. Let me learn more about it, because it can't be that I resonate with so much other wisdom so deeply. It makes so much sense. And there's this area that I'm horrified or shocked or freaking out about that's totally relevant and wrong, right? It can't be that that's the case. It must be that on some level I don't understand the depth of it. So I don't have to do it right now, but maybe I'll have to learn more about it, right? So I think approaching it that way at first is really, really important. And the question comes, what's the connection between charus, engraved, and chayrus, freedom? What's the connection in the Mishnah? So it turns out, when I was little, I danced, right? I was 5 years old. My mom put me into ballet classes and I danced. And I danced for many, many years. And eventually I danced professionally for a while, getting myself through college, right? So ballet, jazz, modern tap, not hip hop. Hip hop wasn't invented yet. I'm too old for that. But I love dancing, and I would go to see the ballet. I don't know if anyone's seen a ballet, and I would go and see these ballerinas fly across the stage. And they were just unbelievable. Like they'd hold a leg up at 180 and just hold it there, right? With such intense like mastery. And I wanted to be like them. They were so unique in their expression, and they were so graceful. And I got home and they would do those fouettes, you know, those whip turns where they do turn after turn after turn. And I would go home and try it, and I would fall on my tuchus, and I would just be like, I can't do it, right? I didn't have the control or anything. If you go into a dance company's rehearsal, and everyone is so unique, by the way, every ballerina was dressed beautifully in their costumes, and they're all so unique in their expression. And if you go into the rehearsal the next day, what do you actually see? You see lines of ballerinas, all dressed identically in the same leotards and the same tights with the same buns and the same, everything's the same. They're not allowed to have any jewelry, by the way, they get fined. And they're doing the same exercises over and over and over and over again, up and down. They're looking the same way, up, down. Everything's the same way, like a drill nearly, over and over, right? The legs are going like this, like this, like this, like this, the same exact exercises. If you go into an orchestra, go to a symphony, it's unbelievable. There's a sense of unity and oneness. Everyone's playing their unique role. But you go into a rehearsal the next day, and what do you see? Every single instrument is playing scales up and down, up, practicing the technique over and over and over. For a male reference, you go into a sports team, right? You go to see a sports match. An amazing team plays like a unified unit. Every person plays in their unique position, and they play together as a whole, but it's every single unique contribution of each position that can win the game. But you go into the sports training the next day, and they're doing sprints, and they're doing sit-ups, and they're doing push-ups, and over and over and over, they are engraving the craft and the sports into themselves. They are engraving over and over the discipline into themselves. And we admire this. We love it. We get up and we look up to these people. 4 a.m. ice skaters going figure skating, get the gold medal. Like they sacrifice their time to engrave the discipline inside of themselves over and over again. Why? Because to the degree that they engrave that craft and that discipline inside of themselves, to that degree, they can pop out and be free and use themselves as an instrument to have complete mastery over their skill and their talent. And they are one of absolute excellence in the world, right? To the degree that they engrave that skill and that craft, to that degree, they are giving their unique contribution, and they are at a level of absolute excellence and a level of mastery that the whole world admires. Yes, would you agree with this? So guess what? The Torah, all of these ideas come from the Torah, and the Torah is a divine choreography. The Torah is a divine choreography that teaches you how to move through your life. It's the discipline, it's the craft of how to move through your life in the most righteous, elevated way. And it's something to practice for a life. It's not about getting it all now and doing it all at once. And if I don't, I feel guilty, right? It's like, what are you talking about? A figure skater or a sports person, they go training, and if they mess up, they mess up, and they try better the next day and they slowly improve. They don't think, oh my gosh, I've got to be perfect at my craft on day 1. Or day 10 or 10 years in. It's a constant level of improvement, right, of the discipline and the craft. So too with us. If the Torah is teaching us, like, put your hand in your pocket and give tzedakah, right? Don't speak lashon hara. It's going to just disrupt your relationships. Honor your parents, right? Look with an eye tov, a good eye at people. It teaches you how to move through life. And the more we engrave that craft, that discipline inside of ourselves, the more we will have this excellence of who we are and being a light unto the nations and being able to live in a free way, having complete mastery over ourselves. So the halacha is sitting there as a discipline to learn over our lifetime, to be able to engrave inside of us and just practice and practice and practice so that we can become more refined and more refined and more refined and greater. Does this make sense? So that this is the way that when I started to see it this way, it took off that sting, it took off that pressure, it took off that idea that, oh my gosh, I have to do everything now, or there's something wrong with me, or I can't do any of it, right? A lot of times the Yetzer Hara will like to grab hold of the one thing that freaks you out the most and then says, well, you can't do any of the Jewish stuff because this freaks you out because you'll never do that, right? The Yetzer Hara's favorite tactic is to do that, is to grab onto like 1 or 2 things that you really think you'll never do. And then I'm like, forget that. You know, I always say in Australia, pick a lizard, not a crocodile. Go for the little things, not the crocodile. Don't go wrestling the crocodile, right? Everyone likes to wrestle the crocodile. That's the Yetzer Hara because it makes you want to give up. Yeah. So as far as going forward with our growth, no matter where you're at, the key idea here is to go in baby steps. And how much time do I have, Chai? 5 minutes. The key is to go in baby steps because there's a psychological reason which we understand. Okay, goal setting, baby steps, it makes sense, but there's a deeper spiritual root as to why to go in baby steps. And I'll just share this with you, and then I'll maybe open up for a couple questions or comments or protests, whatever you want. So the idea is that I'll explain it with a metaphor. After the war, the Lebanon war in Israel, the Israeli soldiers were so freaked out in Lebanon because it was 1963. Was it 63, the war? Yeah, anyone help me out? 1963, I think, in Lebanon. And I'm looking at the rabbis, they're just looking at me, help me out, save me, hello. And the Israeli soldiers were sitting in Lebanon, and they were freaked out because they saw so much hashgacha pratis, divine providence, about how they were totally helped in the war. So much so they wanted to fly in a big rabbi to address the soldiers in Israel. And they decided to fly in a Rav Wolbe. Rav Wolbe was a famous rabbi about personal growth. And he was the Rebbe of one of my Rebbes, Rabbi Kellerman, who told me this story. And they flew in Rav Wolbe alone into Lebanon to address the Israeli soldiers who were still stationed there after the war. And it was just him and a little Israeli pilot in the plane, on a dinky little Israeli plane. And they flew into Lebanon. And as they were flying in, all of a sudden the plane did a 180 nosedive. And Rav Wolbe's like, oh my God, Kol Beseder, is everything okay? He thinks they're going to crash. And then they level out close to the ground. And the Israeli pilot's like, yeah, Kol Beseder, you know what they're like, they're so chill. And he's like, yeah, you know, basically he says that we're post-war. And he said, if we have an Israeli plane flying over Lebanon, I didn't want the radar to pick us up because it's still very tense. So I just did a nosedive down and we're flying low to the ground. I entered low so they wouldn't pick us up on the radar, right? So that it wouldn't cause any conflict. And Rav Wolbe realized, oh my gosh, this is the same idea of baby steps, masim katanim, baby steps in your growth. Obviously, only Rav Wolbe would make that connection. I don't know who else would. But he basically realized what happens when I take baby steps. I slowly grow and move, and it goes underneath the radar of my Yetzer Hara. My Yetzer Hara doesn't even pick up that I'm changing and growing, and it leaves me alone. It doesn't create that counterbalance punch back to say like, oh, you know, when you go on, I don't know if men don't know this, but when women go on a yo-yo diet, right? They say, I'm never eating chocolate ever again, right? Some extreme step like this. So about a week or two into that, you can handle it for a week or two, but all of a sudden you have this insatiable desire for chocolate because you have ripped it out of your life, and it's so extreme that like there's no way you can sustain that. It's too big a step, yeah? So other than, obviously there's certain exceptions where if something's dangerous for you, you have to go cold turkey. But overall, we don't recommend that. We recommend Masim Katan in baby steps because it gets underneath the radar of your Yetzer Hara. Your Yetzer Hara doesn't pick up that you're changing and it leaves you alone. It sustains an equilibrium, a homeostasis inside of yourself so that you can continue growing. It should never, ever feel like you're amputating something out of your life. It should never feel like overnight from one day to the next, I've amputated something that I really liked out of my life. It should never feel like that in Judaism. If it feels like that, something's wrong. And you need to speak to a rabbi or rebbitzin who actually understands growth to be able to speak it out with them. It should always feel that it's manageable, it's doable. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's totally doable. It's not freaking you out, right? So how to max out, not freak out means go in baby steps. Yeah, understand that we're always a slave to something, right? I'm not, my freedom is really about choice and self-mastery. And to the degree that I engrave the discipline and the craft into myself, to that degree, I'll be chayrus, I'll be free. Chayrus, sorry, I'll be free, right? I'll pop out of myself and actually have that freedom. If I don't, and I just do, in ballet, we used to do improv, right? Improv dance. The teacher would put the music on, the little girls would dance around spontaneously to the music, doing whatever they feel like doing. And it felt great, but you could never be greater than who you are in that moment. Whenever you put the music on and just dance, it's great expression. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can never be you could never be greater than who you are because you're not engraving a discipline that's beyond you into you. You're just expressing whoever you are in that moment. Does that make sense? So improv is wonderful. If you're a musician, you'll also understand this, but it's through the internalization of discipline and self-control and engraving that craft that you become your greatest self. And that's the purpose of halacha. So I just want to start there, and I want to, hopefully that's given you some sort of inspiration and relief at the same time. And I want to open it up to anyone for questions, comments, protests. You can argue with me as well. It's fine.
I just thought it was very, very relatable, felt very real. You're one of the best speakers I've ever heard. And you're just very good at, like, it was very relevant because I noticed that, yeah, I always notice the biggest changes in my life when it's very gradual. No matter how much I thought it would have to be the other way, I eventually realized that. And no, yeah, this feels very, very exciting to hear it from this perspective. So great job. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's a Yetzer Hara to pressure us to feel like we really should be doing more. It's also another Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is so slippery. We have to get to know our own Yetzer Hara and like how it works for us, but it does that a lot to me. Also puts pressure on me. My own Yetzer Hara puts a lot of pressure on me to get so much done every day, right? That it's nearly like I just want to procrastinate and be on YouTube and watching videos because who cares? It's too much. That's exactly how the Yetzer Hara wins. Yeah.
Someone sent me a question so I can ask. What do you do if you're at a point where you're basically like stuck? So you're growing, let's say with a Shabbos observance, and then you just feel like you can't take another step and you're just kind of stuck in the status quo.
So it depends why someone's stuck. It depends if like maybe they took on too much and they're feeling like bogged down by it because they took on too much, or it could be they don't have enough support around them and they need more support around them, or it could be they need an injection of inspiration from external and they need to go into like a Shomer Shabbat environment, go to someone's house for Shabbat or be with friends who keep Shabbat so they feel like they're supported. Usually that kind of feeling is because they're alone. They're just like slugging it out, even though they should know that every little step is a huge spiritual punch, like once you're alone and you're in that hard place, because, you know, we know according to this challenge is the reward. So every little thing that's harder, you get much more spiritual merit for, and it has much more spiritual punch in the world. But it's hard to sustain that on your own. Everyone finds that hard. And get some like-minded Jewish friends, do Shabbat with them outside somewhere, or get some other injection of inspiration that inspires you. Like you might need genuinely something from the outside to come in. We can't expect to be alone all the time, right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jackie. Really appreciate the insights and the strategies into how to handle our Yetzer Hara and maximize our growth. So thank you so much for joining us from your car. We appreciate it.